Bel Canto is an American film that weaves a tale of unexpected connections and the transcendent power of art. It is a poignant reminder of our shared humanity and hope in the face of danger. The first scene of the movie transports us to Tokyo, where we are introduced to our main protagonist, Katsumi. Katsumi Hosokawa is the head of a major Japanese electronics company, characterized by diligence and order. We catch sight of him transported to Cloud 9 while immersed in listening to opera. His adoration for the voice of the opera singer, Roxanne, will turn his world upside down through the course of the movie. Bidding his son farewell after informing him about his departure, Katsumi takes wing to South America, accompanied by his faithful translator, General. Upon his arrival, he discovers a poor environment, stirring a hornet's nest of complaints. However, he is as determined as a beaver to seal a new partnership that will enrich his success as a businessman. Soon, he learns that an extravagant party is taking place, and much to his delight, the party will be graced by his all-time favorite opera singer, Roxanne. The allure of hearing her stunning voice was the carrot that drew him to South America. In the ensuing scene, we find ourselves in the opulent mansion of the vice president, Ruben Ochoa, where the party is being held. He welcomes Katsumi with open arms, expressing his deepest honor to have him and extends his apologies about the absence of the president, who is tied up in diplomatic meetings. Little does he know that the president is immersed in recoding a show instead, yet this is the best card Robin could play. Soon, he introduces Katsumi to the French ambassador, Simon Thibault, along with his wife Edith, sharing greetings and rubbing elbows. In the meantime, we catch a glimpse of Roxanne, the prominent opera singer, engaged in a phone call, lamenting the storm clouds surrounding her, the soldiers everywhere with their guns around, and the demanding, high-esteemed audience. Shortly after, her assistant, Christopher, announces the beginning of the soiree, lighting a fire under Roxanne to descend immediately. Dressed to the nines, Roxanne captures the attention of all present. Seduced by her charm, Katsumi receives her with a wide-eyed welcome, his face a picture of awe and astonishment. Roxanne wonders about his preferences, only for Jen to reveal that his master has a soft spot for Rusalka, since he immensely enjoyed it while in Vienna. In the subsequent scene, we are entertained by the melodious voice of Roxanne, Katsumi's eyes brimming with adoration as he steals every glance to marvel her presence. Outside the room, we catch a glimpse of the maid listening to Roxanne's masterpiece alongside her son, who is more interested in playing with his tiny ball. Suddenly, it slips through his fingers and he rushes to retrieve it. Once he reaches it, he is surprised to find a man hiding in the air vent. The latter asks him to remain silent, and therefore, out of dread, the little boy grabs his ball and hastens next to his mother. Soon, fate, capricious and uninvited, will intervene. Back to Roxanne, who keeps spreading her magic across the room. As soon as she finishes her last song, all the lights in the vice president's mansion go out. All of a sudden, gunshots echo through the air, causing chaos. Armed guerrillas storm the place. They bring the guests to their knees, close the curtains, and trap Robin in a corner, inquiring about the president's whereabouts. Robin, scared out of his wits, dismisses the president's presence within the audience, a revelation that urges the man's fury, leading him to strike him hard. Under the threat of assassination, Robin assures them that the president preferred remaining in his own house to watch his telenovela. Soon the police surround the mansion, in an attempt to catch the criminals and free people safely from their clutches. After hitting an end and finding themselves between a rock and a hard place, one of the guerrillas urges Robin to convey a clear message to the police. He relays their ultimatum. If the shooting doesn't stop, they will eliminate the hostages, increasing the tension. The guerrillas' demands are simple: the release of their imprisoned friends, along with the leader's wife. The glittering party transforms into a month-long standoff. Later on, while silence covers the room, and while the captives are lying on the ground, restricted to remaining hushed, ever a gentleman, Katsumi approaches Roxanne and extends his jacket to use it as a pillow, a gesture she welcomes with open arms, all under the eyes of the captors. The following morning, a Swiss man named Messner, working with the International Committee of the Red Cross, joins the scene. After passing the security check to confirm being unarmed, Messner reaches the mansion's door, where Robin questions his arrival. Messner ensures that he only seeks to maintain the well-being of the captives. Due to the language barrier, the Commandante, Benjamin, summons Genyoris to translate. The latter conveys the message: the guerrillas came for the president, Masuda, and they will release everyone in exchange for him. Yet, the harsh reality hits them like a ton of bricks when Robin announces that Masuda won't show up. Messner, noticing Robin's injury, suggests calling for medicine. However, Benjamin halts him in his tracks, believing that nothing will proceed if he bleeds out. In an attempt to change his mind, Messner questions the existence of a sewing kit to stitch up the wound. Christina, Robin's wife, rushes upstairs to retrieve it, but unfortunately, no doctor is present to lend a helping hand. Therefore, Messner takes charge of the mission, despite his lack of knowledge, driven only by his sense of humanity. However, he fails to do so, causing Robin to endure extreme pain. Requesting the intervention of anyone who can sew him up, one of his assistants, Carmen, steps in to save him, and luckily, she accomplishes it successfully. Shortly after, Benjamin demands the hostages lie down. However, Messner stands his ground and instead insists on stepping outside to refresh himself for an hour, until he prepares the list of their needs. In the following scene, we depict Roxanne washing her face to recharge and regain her composure, but eventually, she cries a river. Soon, she returns to the holding room, clueless about her fate. Messner, on the other hand, is being summoned inside to be informed that women, workers, priests, and the ill will be released. Additionally, Benjamin passes him 2 papers. The first one contains their necessities, and the second one is to be delivered to the press with bells on. It reveals that all of the political prisoners held in the government's jails must be freed. If not, they are ready to go down with the ship for them, a continued persistence that will only add fuel to the fire. Consequently, Jen is seen calling the shots, asking the hostages to divide themselves into 2 lines, the women to the far right and the men to the far left, an expected move to set the stage for their discharge. With tears in her eyes, Edith bids farewell to her husband, longing for a swift reunion. On the other hand, Roxanne rushes to her assistant, Christoph, whose legs give out beneath him due to his lack of insulin. Along with Katsumi, she accompanies him to the door to get the appropriate medical care. Before departing, the priest, Arguedas, chooses to stay in case they need him. Shortly after, while the women are making their way out under Messner's guide, Christina parts ways with a heavy heart with her beloved Robin, whereas, on the other hand, Roxanne shares with Katsumi final affectionate glances. Little do they know that they will spend the whole month together. Only a few moments before reaching the light of freedom, Benjamin grabs the bull by the horns, pulling Roxanne back, believing that she is very important, and that releasing her would be a mistake. Katsumi attempts to help her, yet he finds himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Once outside, Christoph notices the absence of Roxanne. Ever the knight in shining armor, he rushes back, determined to save her, much to our dismay as he opens the door and is struck down in his heart with a bullet. Roxanne hurries to his side, but it's too late. He has already met his sad end. Father Arguedas whispers a prayer for his departed soul, prompting Roxanne to fall apart at the seams. Ever a consoling shoulder, Katsumi draws nearer and gently wipes the blood from her hand. Undeterred, Messner persists in his attempts to convince Benjamin to release Roxanne. However, his efforts fall on deaf ears. In the following scene, after carrying Christoph's body out, Messner reaches out to Robin, providing him with antibiotics to ward off any possible infection, and seizes the opportunity to address Roxanne, promising to spring her from this trap as swiftly as possible. We catch sight of the reports, the journalists, and the police as well, circulating the incident scene with one loud voice: the release of the hostages. However, Comandante Benjamin shows up on the rooftop and emphasizes that they are neither fish nor fowl. It is the government that keeps biting the hand that feeds them, murdering their brothers and sisters. Delivering their motto, they fight the corrupted system for the people, come hell or high water. In the subsequent act, Jen moves closer to Roxanne, conveying Katsumi's message. He expresses his condolences for her assistant, holding himself accountable for his demise. Kind-hearted, Roxanne proceeds towards him, washing off his involvement in the current events. Katsumi confesses that he came to hear her magical voice in exchange for building a factory, which he never intended to do. He shares his gratitude for her presence for a private concert, much to Roxanne's delight when she learns that he considers her voice akin to the most sublime melodies. With a radiant smile on her face, Roxanne reveals that she attended many private parties all around the world, and she turned down this engagement several times until they paid through the nose. Therefore, she is the one to hold the bag. Soon, the guerrillas will supply them with food. The captives in the following few sequences are depicted cleaning the grounds, washing clothes, and gathering for tea and small talks to while away the time. Days and nights pass by, and the situation remains as steady as a rock, or even gets more complicated when the French ambassador Simon runs out of water while shaving his beard. The government, in an attempt to prompt the guerrillas' surrender, cuts off water. Hence, Benjamin asks for Roxanne's help, who is seen immersed in playing cards. He politely urges her to sing loudly enough for the authorities outside to hear her voice, serving as a reminder of what is at stake. Initially hesitant, Benjamin beseeches her by laying his cards on the table, emphasizing the significance of water, but also refreshing her memory that they are not going to throw in the towel on the rights of their comrades, believing that the government may find a solution. Enough of a reason to convince Roxanne. After Benjamin's departure, Roxanne finds herself at a crossroads. Therefore, she wonders about Katsumi's opinion and whether she should sing or rebuff their request. Katsumi approaches her with a reassuring smile, believing that her voice doesn't belong to them. Shortly after, we catch the sighs of Katsumi and Roxanne, along with Jen and his arduous mission of translation, strolling around the house's corridors. Curiosity piqued, Roxanne asks Katsumi about the first time he heard opera. He recounts that when he was a child, his father took him to a soprano performance, where he unearthed his passion for opera. On the other hand, Roxanne recalls her early ages and how she used to sing around the clock, as if singing was the only language she mastered. And when she turned 7, her mother found her a talented teacher, who helped her hone her skills. In the meantime, Katsumi gazes at Roxanne with eyes that hold a universe of admiration. He values her opinions, her insights, and the stories she shares about her background. In order to lessen the tension imposed on the captives, Jen gently asks the French ambassador Simon to play the piano, a request met with approval. He leaps onto the piano bench and begins playing a joyful piece, leaving the ambiance filled with happiness. As soon as Simon finishes, he receives thunderous applause and cheers. The ensuing day, Messner arrives with a megaphone. After acknowledging Simon's humble musical talent, the gorillas urge him to synchronize his playing with Roxanne's aria. Directed to the balcony, Roxanne stands tall in front of the crowd gathered in front of the house and starts singing, seizing the spotlight. Initially, she struggles to hit the appropriate tune, as more than a week has passed since her last show, but soon succeeds in regaining her vocal prowess. Following the conclusion of her performance, her fellow captives sing her praises, including Katsumi, who tips his hat to her. Awaiting the consequences of their attempt, we find Benjamin and Alfredo checking the news, hoping for an impending settlement. Fortunately, they flip the script, and the water ends up back in the house. The gorillas are seen joyfully drinking from the sink. On the other part of the house, Jen's eyes fall on Carmen, seduced by her gaze. Messner, ever clever, makes the most of the situation and prompts Jen to address her in an attempt to extract any information that could help them escape. The latter approaches her, wondering whether she liked Roxanne's performance, paving the way for further discussion. Yet once she expresses her admiration in Roxanne's voice, she is summoned, prompting her to hastily retreat. Shortly thereafter, she accompanies Roxanne to Benjamin's side. He expresses his appreciation for her assistance. In return, Roxanne demands her release alongside the other hostages, yet Benjamin dismisses her quest. However, he promises her creature comforts. In the subsequent scene, Roxanne finds herself in the lap of luxury. She sinks into the bed, as snug as a bug in a rug, relishing a deep breath after weeks of sleeping on the hard ground. Carmen, ever thoughtful, provides Roxanne with towels, who receives her with a smile as wide as a mile. Carmen is a young insurgent, yet she is discovering friendship with Roxanne and Jen, and they are becoming as thick as thieves. In the ensuing scene, while walking with a box containing music sheets and lotion for Roxanne, Benjamin abruptly hurls it to the ground, leaving Messner taken aback and wondering about what has transpired. Benjamin reveals that he found a listening device concealed within the items he brought from outside, accusing him of being a CIA agent. Outraged, Messner vehemently denies any involvement or any knowledge about it. Cursing his unfortunate luck for enduring years under the constant threat of guns, he demands that they seek another intermediary. Subsequently, holding the chess box, Roxanne approaches Katsumi and passes him a chess box. Inviting her to play with him, Roxanne kindly declines, expressing her lack of knowledge of the game. However, Katsumi urges her to join him, promising to teach her the ropes of the game. Later that night, Carmen musters her courage and cautiously approaches Jen while he is sound asleep. She wakes him up, and much to his astonishment, she expresses her desire to improve her linguistic skills in both English and Spanish. Therefore, they agreed to meet at 2 a.m. In the ensuing scene, we capture both of them reunited. They choose the china closet as their secluded classroom, where they can be alone and undisturbed, away from the eyes of rebels. In the following few days, Roxanne embarks on a practicing journey, alongside the accompaniment of Simon on the piano, in addition to her chess training sessions with Katsumi, a game that strengthens their bond. On the other hand, Jen continues to impart the intricacies of language to Carmen. We can sense that a story of love is flourishing, despite the darkest times. The gorillas themselves, due to annoyance, enjoy watching TV, playing around, and practicing in the backyard. Roxanne, ever kind, hands a helping hand to Katsumi and starts teaching him how to play the piano. We catch sight of him practicing, with Roxanne holding his hand, a touch that kindles his affection for her. Over time, Roxanne and Carmen grow closer, as the latter often accompanies her throughout the day. Roxanne settles beside Carmen and gently brushes her hair. Carmen reveals that she is learning English, much to Roxanne's delight. She wonders about her married life, only for her to know that she was married twice, but ended up alone. Intrigued, Roxanne questions her opinion about Katsumi, a question that reveals Roxanne's attraction to him. In the meantime, Jen is seen teaching Katsumi Spanish. He confides in his master that he is currently teaching Carmen as well, a revelation that prompts Katsumi's smile as he discerns the unspoken truth about Jen's burgeoning crush on Carmen. As soon as Roxana walks in, Katsumi approaches her, uttering a Spanish phrase. Much to Roxana's delight when he mentioned that Chicago is a beautiful city, they share laughter, reveling in each other's company. Carmen confides in Jen that Roxanne is falling in love with Katsumi. While inquiring about Katsumi, Carmen drops a bombshell. She states that Katsumi lives in Japan, but he is not going back home, much to Jen's bewilderment, questioning her words. Yet Carmen alters the topic and teases Jen, asking him to teach her faster, then departs. Little do we know that Carmen's words will soon prove true, setting off a chain of events that will turn their lives upside down. She discreetly gestures for him to follow her. She grabs his hand and guides him to the bathroom, seeking a private moment together. Once inside, Carmen reveals her happiness being all together, feeling on cloud nine. However, Jen acknowledges that their current situation won't go on indefinitely, knowing it's just a matter of time. Suddenly, she grasps his shirt, pulls him close, and they share passionate kisses. Long-awaited moments that make their hearts skip a beat. Much to their dismay, when Fyodorov interrupts them, knocking on the door, it feels like a bolt from the blue. Frustrated, Jen departs cautiously, attempting to divert Fyodorov's attention, trying to hit two birds with one stone. However, the latter catches wind of their secret when Carmen exits the bathroom shortly after. Jen's face shows a mix of fear and embarrassment, yet Fyodorov assures him that he will keep his secret, urging him not to worry. In the ensuing scene, Messner is summoned by the police commissioner. They are planning a covert and cunning plan to liberate the hostages, hoping to hit the nail on the head. Soon, he enters the mansion, where he discovers Roxanne and Katsumi playing chess. He welcomes Benjamin with a solid proposal, a pledge to free his wife from prison, to reunite them with their children in Sweden, and to release a limited number of their comrades, only if he agrees to release the hostages. After a few moments of contemplation, Benjamin insists on his stance. He demands the freeing of all of their political prisoners, standing his ground. Messner urges him to reconsider his decision, but in vain. Shortly after, he departs, wishing for Benjamin to have a change of heart. Subsequently, Benjamin informs his comrade Alfredo about the offer that he received. Alfredo, on the other hand, believes that the offer would help them solve the problem. Yet Benjamin, ever wise, asks him to wait for a while, anticipating a better offer, believing that if they surrender now and agree on what is on the table, it will likely result in their demise. The following scene is a poignant moment that symbolizes the breaking down of barriers between the hostages and the guerrillas. While the hostages are depicted enjoying their meals, a routine that brings some normalcy to their situation. Benjamin, Alfredo, along with their comrades join them. They take seats among them, and they soon begin to eat, sharing dishes, and serving food to one another. Laughter and conversation start to flow more freely. Thereafter, Roxanne gently approaches Jen, requesting that he ask Carmen not to sleep in front of her room at night. She wants to spend some private time with Katsumi, a request that Carmen receives with an open heart. In the middle of the night, Carmen accompanies Katsumi to Roxanne's room. Suddenly, Carmen's friend halts them in their tracks, asking them to leave, otherwise, they will fall into trouble. However, Carmen insists on her pursuit and reveals that Roxana and Katsumi are falling for each other. Enough of a reason to convince her. The tension that permeates the atmosphere during the day gives way to a moment of vulnerability and longing at night. Roxanne and Katsumi find themselves drawn to each other. As they face each other silently, passion is palpable in the air. They reach out, gently grabbing each other's faces, a gesture that speaks volumes of their mutual affection. They share fervent kisses and end up in bed with their bodies intertwined. On the other hand, Jen and Carmen retreat to a secluded haven, where they tenderly express their love for each other, exchanging whispers and delicate touches. In the subsequent morning, we depict Carmen's delight following a magical night. Shortly after, Caesar, one of the guerrillas, gracefully joins Simon at the piano, enriching the melody with a piece of opera. Soon, Roxanne enters, captivated by Caesar's unexpected talent. However, when he reaches a challenging high note, his voice falters into an awkward screech, prompting the laughter of the onlookers. Embarrassed, Caesar, with tears streaming down his face, rushes outside and climbs a nearby tree, concealing himself from everyone, seeking solitude. Despite his friends' pleas, Caesar remains steadfast and refuses to come down. Ever compassionate, Roxanne suggests going outside in an attempt to persuade him. Therefore, Carmen approaches Benjamin, who is immersed in reading the newspaper, and wonders whether it is permitted for Roxanne to go outside and convince Cesar to descend, going the extra mile and proposing that the guards can accompany them for security. However, Carmen notices Benjamin's distress, prompting her to inquire whether something is amiss. He reveals his frustration, confessing that there is not a single word about their plight. It seems that the authorities have completely forgotten them. Shortly after their exchange, Benjamin addresses Jen, instructing him to announce their departure outside to rescue Caesar. After being confined within the mansion's walls for more than a month, the hostages enjoy basking in the warmth of the sun. Simon and Fyodorov, embracing the moment, start running and playing. Their actions are reminiscent of carefree children. This unexpected display of innocence and happiness is infectious, and it prompts even the gorillas to join in the fun. Benjamin and Alfredo are drawn into this moment of delight. Robin, seizing the opportunity, approaches his plants to check on them, calling for Ishmael, who is tasked to safeguard the region, to aid him, promising that he will hire him following the end of this dire situation. Fyodorov, catching sight of a ball, invites the crowd to play. They divide each other into two groups. We can hear their laughs filling the air as they run around, trying to catch the ball. On the other side of the garden, we catch sight of Roxanne, along with Katsumi and Jen, attempting to persuade Cesar to go down. Roxanne reassures him that with permanent practice, his voice will fall into shape. She even goes the extra mile, pledging to help him, prompting Cesar to descend immediately with a delighted countenance. In an extraordinary twist of fate, the lines between captor and captive blurs. Football games erupted in the courtyard, not as a distraction, but as a celebration of life's simple joys. Music and song filled the halls, not as performances but as expressions of unity. Suddenly, the tranquility shatters when the police storm in. Their presence marks a tragic event. Cesar, mid-note, is struck down, prompting Roxanne to scream her heart out. The gorillas, who have become more than captors, to their hostages, meet a similar fate. Benjamin and others are mercilessly taken from a world that has just begun to see them differently. Despite Robin's desperate cries attesting to Ishmael's innocence, they eliminate him. Carmen finds herself pursued by relentless forces. Katsumi, driven by a protective instinct, rushes to her aid, only to fall alongside her in a poignant embrace, while Jen's screams for Carmen are cut short by the police's intervention. Benjamin discards his weapon in surrender, yet he meets the same unjust end. Shortly after, we find Roxanne beside Katsumi, crying rivers. Messner, with a face etched with sorrow, crumbles under the weight of this heart-wrenching end. The gorillas, once perceived as adversaries, reveal their humanity. Their quest for their comrades' freedom was born out of necessity, not malice. Messner, witnessing their tragic end, understands that sometimes goodness and kindness are overshadowed by the harsh choices that life thrusts upon us. Soon, Simon finds himself in the arms of his wife Edith, seeking refuge, and while the bus carrying the hostages rolls away, the air is filled with cheers and applause, a gesture of gratitude towards the authorities. However, on the other hand, the hostages' faces darken, and silence prevails. In the final act of the movie, a year later, Jen is seen extending an invitation to Roxanne to grace the stage with her presence. She begins to sing, captivating them with its beauty and power. Jen, filled with great longing, drifts away from the present performance to a vision of Carmen, a sad reminder of the past. Meanwhile, Roxanne catches a glimpse of Katsumi, prompting her to pour even more emotion into her performance, with tears brimming in her eyes. However, she continues the song, a testament to her strength.